America's most decorated war hero from World War II died, broke, addicted, and drowning in debt to some of the most dangerous men in the country. His body was discovered in the mangled wreckage of a private plane that had slammed into a desolate Virginia mountain. The official story, the one printed in the papers, was a simple, tragic accident. But the truth is a far more disturbing and complex story of a man who was celebrated as a god but treated as disposable. He survived the worst battles imaginable, only to be consumed by the demons he brought home from the war. By the end of this story, you will see that the public legend of Audie Murphy was a carefully constructed fantasy, a lie designed to hide a dark, an uncomfortable secret that many believe ultimately got him silenced. Audie Murphy was born into the crushing poverty of the Texas cotton fields during the Great Depression. His family, with 12 children, lived in a rundown shack and were often so hungry they survived on what they could hunt. After his drifter father abandoned the family for good, his mother, who suffered from chronic illness and heartbreak, finally passed away when Audie was only 16. He was devastated. With just a 5th grade education, he became the head of his household, picking cotton for $1 a day to keep his younger siblings from starving. When the news of Pearl Harbor electrified the nation, Audie, like so many young men, felt a burning desire to fight. But the military didn't want him. At just 5 feet 5 inches and barely weighing 112 pounds, recruiters openly scoffed at him. The Marines and the Navy rejected him outright, one recruiter telling him to go home and fatten up. But Audie possessed a silent, ferocious determination that no one could see. He falsified his birth certificate with his sister's help to appear old enough to serve. And he kept trying until, finally, the Army took a reluctant chance on the undersized, baby-faced kid from Texas. It was a decision that would forge a legend in the war-torn fields of Europe. Audie Murphy transformed into something beyond a mere soldier. He became a one-man army, a figure of almost mythical lethality. His acts of bravery were relentless. Before he even earned the Medal of Honor, he received the Distinguished Service Cross for single-handedly charging a German machine gun nest that had his best friend pinned down. He killed the crew, took their weapon, and then used it to wipe out several other nearby enemy positions. He was a force of nature. But the moment that truly cemented his legend came in January 1945, in the Colmar Pocket in France. His company was ambushed by 6 massive German Tiger tanks and waves of infantry. With his position being overrun and his men cut to ribbons, he was ordered to retreat. Audie refused. He ordered his men to the woods while he provided cover. He then climbed onto an abandoned, burning M10 tank destroyer, knowing its fuel and ammunition could explode at any second. For over an hour, standing completely exposed on that fiery metal coffin, he used its .50 caliber machine gun to unleash hell upon the advancing Germans. He killed or wounded over 50 enemy soldiers, shattering their offensive and forcing a full retreat. He only stopped when he ran out of ammunition, at which point he calmly walked back to his men and organized a counterattack. That single act of impossible valor earned him the Medal of Honor, but the psychological cost of his heroism would haunt him for the rest of his life. When Audie returned home, he was an icon, his face on the cover of Life magazine. It was there. That actor James Cagney spotted him and brought him to Hollywood. Studios saw him not as a man, but as a product, the perfect all-American hero. He was given a lucrative contract and appeared in 44 films, becoming a massive movie star. His own life story, To Hell and Back, was Universal's biggest hit for 2 decades. He had fame, wealth, and the adoration of a nation. But it was a gilded cage. Behind the glamorous facade and closed doors of his Hollywood mansion, the war raged on inside his mind. He was suffering from a severe, crippling case of what we now call PTSD. He was plagued by horrific nightmares and a crushing, persistent insomnia that forced him to sleep with a loaded German pistol under his pillow. He admitted he was terrified of the dark, and his first wife would recount how he would often wake up screaming, sometimes holding her at gunpoint, thinking she was an enemy soldier. He was detached, emotionally numb, and trapped in a private hell, all while projecting the image of a perfect, smiling hero to a public that had no idea of his torment. To cope with his inner demons, Audie turned to the only solution offered to him a solution that would ultimately seal his fate. Doctors who had little to no understanding of combat trauma prescribed him Placidil, a powerful and highly addictive sedative. He became hopelessly dependent on it just to get a few hours of sleep, and the drug's side effects only worsened his mood swings and paranoia. Realizing he was trapped in a rare moment of his trademark willpower, he locked himself in a hotel room for a week and went through agonizing withdrawal symptoms to get clean. But the underlying trauma remained. He needed to feel something other than pain and began chasing the adrenaline he'd felt in battle. This led him to his next great vice, gambling. Started betting fortunes on horse races and playing in high-stakes underground poker games. He was reckless. He poured money into disastrous business ventures, including failed oil wells in Texas and deals in North Africa. By the late 1960s, the millions he had earned were gone. He was forced to declare bankruptcy, and America's greatest hero was officially broke. Being broke is a burden, but being in debt to the people Audie Murphy owed money to was a death sentence. His insatiable gambling addiction had dragged him into the dark, violent underbelly of society. He became deeply entangled with known organized crime figures and loan sharks, men with ties to mob bosses who operated in the shadows of Las Vegas and Los Angeles. These weren't friendly games. These were predatory operations run by criminals who solved problems with violence, not lawsuits. As his debts spiraled into the hundreds of thousands of dollars, the threats began. Friends and family reported that in his final years, Audie was a different man, constantly on edge, paranoid, and openly scared for his life. He was convinced he was being watched. He had traded one battlefield for another, but this time, the enemy was invisible, and they played by a far deadlier set of rules. On May 28, 1971, Audie Murphy boarded a twin-engine private plane for a secretive business meeting in Virginia. The deal involved a company making prefabricated homes, and he hoped it would finally solve his catastrophic financial problems. The weather was abysmal, with a thick, soupy fog and driving rain blanketing the mountains. The pilot was not rated to fly using only instruments, making the flight incredibly dangerous. Against all common sense, they took off. The plane never arrived. Slammed into Brush Mountain, killing Murphy and the 5 other men on board. It took rescuers 3 days to find the wreckage. The official NTSB report blamed pilot error and the severe weather, but the questions and suspicious circumstances were too glaring to ignore. Why fly in a storm with an unqualified pilot to a meeting shrouded in secrecy? His family and closest friends have long been convinced that his death was no accident. They believe that America's greatest hero was the victim of a hit, his death expertly disguised as a plane crash to a race. His massive gambling debts and silence him for good. But whether Audie Murphy died in a genuine accident or was the target of a sinister plot, the most uncomfortable and damning truth is this: America created a hero it was utterly unprepared to save. In his later years, Audie Murphy broke his silence and became one of the first and most prominent public figures to speak openly about his struggles with PTSD. He lobbied Congress, pleading for the government to provide better mental health care and destigmatize the psychological wounds of war. He warned them that thousands of soldiers were returning home with the same invisible injuries he had, and that the country was shamefully ignoring their suffering. But America wasn't ready to listen. They wanted a flawless idol, not a broken man who reminded them of the true cost of war. The real tragedy of Audie Murphy isn't the mystery of how he died, it's that we as a nation let him fall so far in the first place. His story is a haunting indictment of how we celebrate our warriors. On the battlefield, only to abandon them in the war, they fight within themselves for the rest of their lives.